This is going to kill you.
Yeah.
Like, don't feed this to kids. It's not safe. Like,
I've seen them in Mexico too.
Right.
Like really big warnings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like cigarettes, right?
Yes.
You go to Europe and you see cigarettes. The entire package says this will kill you. Like literally, you can't even see the brand. It's like, this will kill you. Like,
You're like, I'm just trying to see where my
and it
Cheetos,
should be like that. Listen, if you
yeah.
want to buy it and eat it, fine. But it's like we have to come to terms with the fact that this is the single biggest killer on the planet today, outpacing smoking, war, terrorism, everything. It's the single biggest killer, killing more people every day than anything else. And yet we are doing nothing about it, like nothing.
I mean, we're
this country.
fully ignoring it in the political
We ignore it.
world
We don't talk
right
about
now.
it. The only person who's talking about it is RFK Jr., whether you like him or
know.
not, whether you think he's good or not. He's the only one talking about chronic disease, the epidemic of chronic disease, and the role of our food and food system in it. And I think it's great. And I think somebody needs to talk about this. And I hope it gets on the national debate stage. But I think it's being ignored. And there's so many. I mean, I literally, I can't really say who I met with, but I met with somebody who's very high up in government at the presidential level recently. And I said, listen, ultra processed foods, like, we should not allow these things, or we should regulate these, or whatever I said. I was something about that. And they go, that's never going to happen. Like, that's just never going to happen. Because the food industry is so insidiously behind our government policies. Their food and ag lobby is the biggest lobby.
Yeah.
More than defense.
Which is crazy.
They we add pharma in there, it's pretty big, but it's huge. And they spend $500 million just on the farm bill, which should be called the food bill, because it's about mostly food stamps and WIC and so forth. And $100 billion are spent on SNAP or food stamps, and 75% is junk food and ultra processed food, 10% soda. So our government says don't eat sugar in their dietary guidelines, or eat less sugar, and eat more vegetables and fruit, right? But we fund the growth of these crops that are turned into high fructose corn syrup and sugar, and we don't fund eating fruits and vegetables. 2% of our subsidies go to specialty crops known as fruits and vegetables. Most of them go to these commodity crops that turn into ultra processed food. And then we pay for $10 billion of soda for the poor through food stamps. That's like 30 billion servings a year that we are paying for with our tax dollars. And then we pay for it multiple times, right?
Yeah.
We pay for it through Medicare and Medicaid. We pay for the damage to the environment by growing those foods the way we grow them, with agrochemicals and destruction of the soil and our depletion of our water resources to grow these foods. So we have so many layers of dysfunction in our society, but ultra-processed foods are the biggest killer. And this new study was like looking at 9 million people, looked at the impact of these foods, dramatically increased risk of heart disease. And I think it's shocking to people. And I did a whole podcast about this before this article came out, because there's other data to support this. But basically it said that there's a 50% increased risk of mental health issues, depression, anxiety, simply from eating these foods, because they screw up your brain.
Yeah, well, and they screw up your gut too. And we know that we have the vagus nerve. Exactly. That's the direct connection with the brain as well. Yeah. And we're seeing all these mental health issues, and then we're wondering what's happening, but we're not addressing the root cause.
Totally, we're not. And I think it's really why I work so hard. It's why I think Function Health is such an important company, because it's going to allow people to really understand and say, it's like one thing to go, oh yeah, these foods aren't good for me. It's another thing to go, oh my God, I'm like one step away from diabetes. I better do something about this, right? Yeah. And not only that, here's what you can do based on the science that will fix this, that you're not hearing from your doctor.
Exactly. Well, hopefully as word gets out more and more, and people really understand not only the health implications, but also just how addictive these foods are. Because I know when I really started learning about this, it was obviously that I was protective of my health, but it was also like I don't want these food companies to have this power over me. It became this like empowerment thing for me, where I was like, I'm going to take back my own health and not allow these companies to destroy my health, and also laugh all the way to the bank while doing it, So hopefully we have this really like grassroots movement of people that are just like, F you. Yeah. We want to change this.
I think, Function Health is going to be part of the solution, because I think people are understanding how important it is for them to understand what's happening in their bodies, and not be in the dark about it. And, you can walk around for decades before you have a symptom, but if you check your labs, you go, geez, I'm really insulin resistant. I'm pre-diabetic. I had no idea. We're seeing so many people finding this out, and they they change, and then we see the results improve, and we see them come back and read their tests. It's like super exciting.
So cool. I love that you guys are doing that. It's really cool. Well, before we go, I just want to ask you a personal question that I ask all my guests at the end.
Okay.
Which is, what are your health non-negotiables? So these are things, no matter how crazy your day is, how crazy your week is, that you prioritize for your own health.
Good question.